Hello everyone, and welcome back to the third part of the video series that I'm doing just for you guys in the group. I'm super excited about this topic, so let's just jump right into it. Today we're going to be talking about getting a grip on our emotions. And I think this is going to be super helpful for a lot of you in the group and really relevant as well, because times are super tough right now, and we need to be able to control at least what's happening internally, because our outside world is uncontrollable. We can't really choose what's happening in the world around us, but we can choose what's happening inside. So before we get into discussing how we can control or manipulate our emotions, or whatever you want to call it, we have to discuss why it's so difficult to identify our emotions. The first step is always being able to identify so that we can be aware of our own actions and behaviors. So for myself included, and I think a lot of you can attest to this, but some of those limiting beliefs behind being able to identify those difficult emotions really arise because we fear expressing emotion. We feel discouraged about expressing emotions. We feel that our emotions are inconvenient to others. Sometimes we even fear expressing very specific emotions. So when all these limiting beliefs are kind of pushed in the back of our minds, what happens is we either stop expressing emotion or we repress that emotion and we kind of hide it with something else. Have you ever been in a situation where someone asks you like, hey, how are you doing? Like, you seem a little down, whatever, blah, blah, and you say, I'm fine. But really deep down, you're feeling like either anxious or scared or angry or some other emotion, and you feel like you have to hide it by saying that you're feeling fine, or maybe you're even feeling happy, and that's how you choose to hide it. I've definitely been one to do this in the past, and sometimes I occasionally even do this. But really what it comes down to is this kind of behavior lessens our ability to recognize how we feel. And so what we need to do is take back our power. So in order to take back our power, we have to do 4 things. We need to be able to recognize when we're in an emotional state. We need to know what that emotional state is. We need to know what goes on physiologically and psychologically when we're in that emotional state. And then we need to know how to influence ourselves to go into a new emotional state. So first, I kind of just want to briefly talk about what an emotional state is, because I think it's really important to kind of pick it apart a little bit. So our state is the psychological feeling that we experience. And the emotion is the physiological interpretation or label that we put on that state. So it's interesting that most of us tend to think about an emotion as a noun. It is something that we have, it is something that just exists, and we have no control over. But really what happens, so I'm gonna get a little sciencey on you guys, but just bear with me here. So what happens when we reach that emotion? Let's break it down. So what happens is we have a situation, we interpret the situation as a thought. That thought gets created into a state, which is the psychological feeling that we experience. Then we interpret that state, we put a label on that state, and then we create that emotion for us. So if you think about all the steps that have to be put into our bodies and our minds to get to that emotion, it's a lot of work. It happens in a split second, but there are multiple steps along the way. So when you think about an emotion, say fear, for example, it is the act of fearing. That emotion is not a noun, but it's a process. It is the act of fearing. And once you're able to think about the ways or the steps that are involved in creating that emotion, and you realize there are multiple steps of you interpreting, putting labels on things, creating thoughts in your mind, you start to realize, okay, well, if there are that many steps involved, and I'm actually involved in this process, you realize that you actually have control over it. And so these emotions aren't just dragging you, on your day-to-day activities, and you're not being influenced by these emotions. Your thoughts and your labels that you're putting on situations are creating these emotions, which are then putting you into these bad moods and creating your decisions and influencing your actions and behaviors onto others and even onto yourself. I mean, it happens all the time where I get into these patterns where I'm not thinking about how I'm feeling and I'm not asking myself, why do I feel this way? Where is it coming from? And then I just do things unconsciously. And after a while, even, I ask myself, why did I do that? Why would I let myself just get into this, crazed person where I just can't control anything? But once you're able to create that awareness for yourself, once you're able to recognize, yeah, I am in charge. I don't have to create a label on that. I don't have to make myself so angry. I can recognize when I'm about to get angry and just not do that action. I cannot scream at that person. I don't have to get so frustrated when something isn't going my way, and I don't have to take it out on others, and I don't have to take it out on myself either. So again, once you're able to recognize when you're in that emotional state, or even recognize before that emotional state comes on, because again, it is a process. So if you can recognize when you are interpreting or putting a label on a certain situation, you can almost stop yourself. Okay, let me take a step back. Why do I feel this way? What is physiologically happening in my body? How can I create a new interpretation for this situation? So I'm going to give you guys a couple of questions that are going to be super helpful in asking yourself, when you have this emotional state that arises, ask yourself these questions so that you can get a better understanding of your own emotional state, because again, everyone's is different, and you're going to have your own patterns, your own behaviors, your own interpretations, your own labels, your own limiting beliefs. There's just so much that is just you involved in this process. So I have these questions written down, so I'm just going to be reading off of them so that you guys can maybe write these down too. But what I like to do sometimes is, again, as you'll know, I like to journal about these. Just jot down a few quick notes so that I can get a better understanding of what's happening to me internally, and so that I can get a better understanding of where I need to stop myself along the way. So a couple of questions that you should maybe ask yourself when you're in this emotional state is, how do I feel? What's happening, whether it's, when you're anxious, your hands are sweaty. If you're nervous and your heart's pounding, if you're angry and your head's pounding, or you're getting hot, those kinds of feelings or those sensations or perceptions in your body. So how do I feel? How do I know that? Right? So I can physically see it, I can feel it, I can smell it, whatever, I don't know. What do I feel? So what are those sensations? Where do I feel it? Where are the locations? Where in my body did it begin? Where does it move to? How do I recognize when others experience this emotion? And do I notice any of these signs in myself when someone else experiences an emotion? So what do I observe in my body language, thoughts, or behaviors? So these are just questions to guide you in this process of recognizing and becoming more aware when we are in these emotional states. Because again, the more you become aware, the more you can recognize when something is about to happen in your body, whether that's psychologically or physiologically. You are in control, and you do create these labels for yourself, and you do have the power to change it. You do have the power to take control of what's going on, right? And as soon as we get comfortable with that fact, it becomes so much easier. So I hope you guys found this video useful, and I really hope you have now a better understanding of what it is that stops us internally from getting a grip on our emotions, from actually controlling the way we feel and the way we experience situations around us. I'd love to hear from you guys and see what you guys thought of this video, so make sure you comment down below and let me know what you thought, if you've actually gained something out of this. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, for those of you who watched till the end, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday.